Top of the morning folks, today from the Reddit Rainforest. Bartenders of Reddit. Your job is to get us intoxicated. What are some of the worst decisions you have seen patrons make while drinking at your establishment? I work in a busy Manhattan bar. There are a lot of bad, drunken decisions made every weekend at my bar. The worst in recent memory was probably a few weeks ago when this guy was sitting at one of the benches near the bar on a busy Friday night, and by around 11:30 he and his girlfriend were both pretty drunk. Apparently he could not wait to get home, or I suppose she might not have been able to wait either, because in clear view of everyone, she starts going down on him. Trying to be clandestine, he covers her with a winter coat. It was not particularly effective. One of the servers was the first to notice, and we went to kick the guy out. As security made their way through the crowd, I tried to tell him he's got to leave, but he was adamant about finishing. He was dragged out, pants around his ankles, with his girlfriend trying to blow him the whole way to the door. This is both the worst and best decision this guy ever made. Was working at a bar about a year ago, and it was one of the quieter weeknights, so nothing crazy huge. More time to talk to patrons. This guy is sitting at the bar, and already a little tipsy, talking about this girl in the bar he does not know, but would like to get with. He was asking us for tips on how to go talk to her, etc. After a while of this, he builds up the courage to just go buy this girl a drink. It works. He's chuffed. Fear sitting together for a couple of hours. He's getting more and more plastered, and everything seems to be going well. He returns to the bar for another round. This is about an hour before closing, and is now asking how he can get out of this. She's really into him, but he finds her really annoying. Our response? Sit back down at the table and start making trumpet noises. However, pretend like nothing is happening. Do not acknowledge it. Do not smile. Just trumpet noises. The guy went back with his drinks, and I'm a lucky you not. Made trumpet noises for about 5 minutes straight until the girl got weirded out and left. He came back the happiest man alive, and bought us all shots. Possibly the best thing I witnessed while working there. Used to tend bar a couple years back. A guy came in, and he was very well dressed, ordered a drink, and was waiting for a friend. A lady walks in. The guy has dinner with her, drinks, the whole 9 yards. Then he makes out with her, and malarkey gets heavy. He leaves with her, and about 20 minutes later comes back. He sits down, orders a drink, and says he is waiting for someone. Mind you, he is still wearing the same clothes. He catches a glimpse of himself in the mirror, hits our bathroom, I'm assuming to freshen up, and comes back. In walks another lady. He has dinner with her, drinks more, and starts making out with her. Completely ridiculous, and my co-bartender and I are in awe. Well, we bring him the check, and he is pretty smashed. He says, I already paid this. Look, I have the receipt. Tell Linda. His lady friend looks at him and says, in Brittany silly. She takes the receipt, looks at it, and the time is from 2 hours earlier. Throws a whole glass of red wine at him and walks out. A guy falls asleep at the bar, so I tell his friends that he has to go. They say no problem, but they need help getting him into the car. So I pick him up and basically carry him to their car. While the friend goes to the driver's side, the guy sobers up enough to stand and looks me in the eye and asks, is my dick hanging out? I reluctantly look down and say no. He says, well, it better be, cause him sin. His friends just put him in the car and come back inside and keep drinking. About 2 hours later, sleepy piss pants comes back into the bar with asphalt burns all over his head, hands, arms, yelling about some black guys that jumped him. We check the surveillance footage, and the black guys ended up being the parking lot. He stumbled his way out of the vehicle onto the pavement and proceeded to fight the parking lot. He lost. We all won. I wish I had saved that footage. I worked as a bartender in a Midwest college gay bar for about a year during undergrad. I saw things I cannot unsee. The half shirts the half shirts. But the worst of it came when I first started there as a bouncer. Wednesday nights for us was family night, which meant we were full of 18+ freshmen, LGBT and straights who would come and go from the club to chug whatever booze they brought in their car, as well as large contingents of both metropolitan area closeted types who would drive an hour south every Wednesday night, as well as a surprising number of hardcore Army Ranger types from a base feed drive 2 hours one way. Suffice to say, every Wednesday was a malarkey show. One girl, though, remains a legendary figure to the people who saw her at her worst. Ed just started working there, and towards the end of the night we get a message from one of our customers saying there's an issue in the men's room. Not pleasant, but not unheard of. I start to get the mop bucket. He tells me it's a different kind of issue. When I walked into the bathroom, a girl was in one of the men's room stalls on all fours, puking into one of the toilets. Her dress was hoisted up over her ass. and the man was straight jackhammering away at her from behind. 3 people were staring from outside the stall. I did what I supposed was the best thing and yelled at them to stop, at which point the girl lifted her head out of the toilet and indignantly told me, let him finish. As long as I live I'll never forget that girl. To sum it up, working as a bouncer, drunk couple ducking doggy style in the bathroom while she was puking in the toilet with people watching. A buddy had a drunken hookup a girl that did not want to leave the next morning, so they spent the weekend together. He was convinced that this girl was really into him, but the next weekend, when we went out, a bartender who recognized her informed me that she was essentially homeless and had a reputation for going home dudes from the downtown bars and bumming off them for as long as possible. Wish we would have known that earlier. I used to bartend at a pizza place. We'd get crazy busy after the other bars began to close and people came to us to soak up the alcohol. We did most of our business selling slices out of a window, kept constantly at about 180 degrees. One night a man, who was apparently on quite a few substances, had just gotten a slice from our window. In the middle of a crowded restaurant, he shrieked, "This pizza is ice cooled," and then to prove his point, slapped the slice against his face repeatedly. Immatureless bartender. So it does not usually get too rowdy or anything. But this one time a man and woman were both there alone separately. Eventually they started talking to each other and the man kept ordering shots. The man paid for both tabs and left. The woman stayed and ordered a beer and then told me that she had to use the restroom. So I reserved her spot. After about 45 minutes, I asked a server to check the restroom because I was worried that she may have gotten sick or something. Turns out that the man came back inside through the to-go door and they were having sex in the restroom. Sex in a chillless restroom. Now that's classy. The Reddit Rainforest is also quite classy. Black coffee mixed with bottom shelf vodka and a belly full of tofu. He had the look. The one someone gets on their face when they're using every ounce of focus not to boot everywhere. It was not long before he put his hand over his mouth and made a puke sprinkler, showering the majority of the room in gut funk. It was glorious from where I was standing. Once it was over, the carnage actually looked like just tofu and soy sauce. I can no longer consume either, but I do drink coffee frequently. This was only about 5 months ago, but there was a social going on and the couple getting married were cops. Of course all of their friends that were cops that were not on duty that night were there. Many friends and families were invited that were not members of the police, so there was a nice mix of company. One guy, not a cop, I kept serving all night, kept mentioning that the bride-to-be was his ex and that he did not deserve to get dumped years ago. Has on his 9th or 10th beer now and has drunk as hell, stumbling all over the place and pissing other people off, but it's a social so many others are looking the same. Suddenly he got the idea in his head that he was going to win back his ex by kicking the malarkey out of her husband-to-be. He starts running from one end of the room, and at this point, people notice that he's running towards the main table. Out of nowhere, the best man, about 66, 275 pounds, clothes lines him right in the middle of the room and the remainder of the wedding party jump on him. Of course, Hez kicked out and brought to the drunk tank by more cops. I'd like to imagine what was going through his mind to try something like that at a social full of cops. Some people. This middle-aged guy used to come in and drink with a younger girl a couple times a month. They were a little socially awkward with others and also had a really weird relationship and we could not figure it out. We later found out he was her father, but it was seriously the strangest father/daughter relationship I have ever seen. When she decided she was done drinking, she would try to order a soda and he would force her to get another drink. Like, no, get her a hurricane right now or else kind of thing. Anyways, on the night of a UFC fight he got so drunk he was walking around the bar creeping out the patrons and ended up throwing up all over himself in front of a family and had to get escorted out by the police, and his daughter was running after him crying her eyes out. I never saw them there again. Last night, often a malarkey night, to work behind the bar in the UK, a guy trying to impress 2 chicks ordered 3 bottles of our most expensive champagne and paid on card. He asked us to open all 3, then changed his mind and asked us to keep 2 open bottles in the fridge for later, and then took one over to the ladies, who were all over him like a rash. He was already so pissed that he forgot about the other 2 bottles. At the end of the night, he took one of girls home and left without reminding us of the other bottles. So, not wanting to waste any champagne, my 2 bar buddies and I proceeded to drink 2 magnums, seeing as they were already paid for, whilst cleaning up the bar, and had a great night. Never saw the guy again, but thanks, you made our night. I saw many stupid things during my years as a bartender, but my favorite is, and always will be, the dude who attempted to down a flaming sambuca shot while it was still aflame. I worked in many locations of varying quality in and around London in the early zeros. One of those was in a suburb of a suburb and was mostly an old man pub with a reputation for solid beers and great food. There were, however, a gang of young twats in the area. There always is, and they'd occasionally come in and suck the class out of the place by being boorish and awful, drinking bottles of bud and the occasional shot of cheap malarkey tea tequila while their hoop-earringed, brick-faced girlfriends sucked down alka-pops and white wine spritzers. I shudder at the memory. Anyway, I was the only real bartender in the place in the sense of having actual training and knowing drinks besides beer and wine. So they'd always try and get me to make drinks they'd seen on TV or read about. One night, they asked me to make something with fire. Cue a round of flaming sambucas. I was about 3 words into explaining how you do a flaming shot when Twat Hash one snatched up his glass and tried to down it. For a couple of seconds, his mouth and chin were actually on fire as he shrieked, and the glass shattered on the floor and everyone malarkey themselves. Then another guy at the bar calmly grabbed a towel and shoved it into his face. He ran off to the toilets and the whole group left shortly afterwards. I gave the guy at the bar a pint on me, and after thanking me for it, he took a sip, gave a deep, satisfied sigh, and looked up at me. Shower of runts. He said. I still laugh when I remember that. Said it. The correct way to drink a flaming anything is to have it prepared for you by somebody sober, to minimize the amount of time the drink is actually aflame, and to blow it out before it makes contact with your flesh. I have never seen it myself, but there is a trick mentioned by others here where you fill your mouth with sambuca, tilt your head back, somebody lights it, and then you extinguish it by closing your mouth. Group of college kids comes into our strip bar. That same night, the other bartender had made Jagger bombs and vodka Red Bull a cheap drink specials. So this one kid, the tallest and goofiest looking one, white dude, 66 with a huge afro, but lanky as hell, takes a jajabum shot with his buddies and immediately pukes it back up. He tries to throw it back up into the cup he drank it from. Pro tip. It does not work, but ended up puking on the floor in front of the garbage can, not in the ducking can. Dude stumbles his way over to the stage like a cartoon giraffe on roller skates and pulls out his ones to tip the dancer as if nothing happened. Guy pulls out what it guessed to be $40 in ones, counts them out as he drops them onto the stage. He yells, "WHOOOO," puts one foot up on stage, and then instantly passes out. A long time ago, early 90s, I worked in Japan behind a bar in Roppongi, Tokyo called the Pineapple Club. It was about the time the first Steven Seagal movie came out, and some American kid who had been studying Aikido for about 5 weeks was totally hammered, even before he came into the bar, and decided he was up to the task of taking the piss out of some US Marines who were on a bar crawl up from Yokohama. I offered to throw him out, but they laughed him off, saying it was not really a problem, but this guy just kept getting more and more annoying. Just before T got to the point where I had to do something about it, he decides to karate chop the smallest guy amongst the Marines. Smallest being a relative term. The guy just turned to look at the swaying mess mouthing off beside him, turned back to his beer, and without even looking smacked him in the solar plexus. His mates picked him up off the floor, took him to a corner table, and he spent the rest of his evening sat among a bunch of Marines, too terrified to even leave. At our bar, we had a bouncer named Isaiah. Isaiah is 611 and a very solid and in shape 300 pounds. Has also trained in various martial arts since he was a kid. Despite all of this, Has probably one of the nicest guys I have ever met. Actual story. On a night that was particularly heavy with Jagger bombs and brothers, we had one young gentleman who was getting rather rowdy and loud with people. Isaiah walks over, tries to talk to him, offers him a bottle of water to calm him down. Out of nowhere, bro takes a swing at Isaiah in one quick and graceful movement that any ballerina would be proud of. Isaiah manages to grab and keep hold of his fist while grabbing the other arm with the same hand. Isaiah then lifts him up and throws him over his shoulder and neck and proceeds to take him out of the bar in the same way a hunter would carry a deer. He takes him outside, sets him down and apparently looked him in the eyes and said, "Go." Message. Most people do not make it this far. Comment Gatorade to confuse the malarkey out of everyone. Back in like 2001 I was a bartender at an Applebee's in Morehead City, NC. One night this total redneck, long hair, scruffy beard, comes in, sits at the bar, and after I give him a few beers I notice Hez annihilated. Must have been drinking before. So I cut him off. Hez not happy with this, but rules are rules, so whatever. Anyways, I go to the bathroom and on the way back hear the bar back, who was this tiny girl, yelling at him to stop. He has gone behind the bar and is trying to pry the cash register open with a spoon. I confront him and tell him to knock it off or I'm calling the cops. And he says go ahead. Call the duckine cops. It's a free country. So I phone the police and they show up about 5 minutes later. So the cops show up. At this point he was back on the other side of the bar and ask him for his ID. ID. You want to see my ID? He yells and takes off his wife beater. Has got an enormous tattoo of a bald eagle with the American flag behind it on his chest. And he points to it and yells at the cops, there's my duckine ID. That good enough for ya? USA USA. He seriously started chanting that. So the cops promptly walk him out. The end. Or so I thought. A few hours later, after I had closed out the place, I start walking back to my apartment and I see his ass driving around in the parking lot. He sees me, pulls up, and says, hey, I lost $1 and am trying to find it. Have you seen $1 anywhere? I could not believe the dude was driving. And still to this day, have no idea how the hell the cops let him go. I only live/work there for another month or so. But I never saw the dude again. Welcome to the end of the video. Do not worry, there are many more. Come aboard for more adventures. Like and subscribe for more posts from the Reddit Rainforest. Thanks for watching.